Hi, everybody. This is Henry A.J. Ramos, the Artistic Director at Studios on the Park in Paso Robles, California. I'm joined today by a very esteemed colleague and a respected artist in her own right, Ellen November. Ellen is a San Luis Obispo County-based artist and curator. She's worked with studios over the years as a major contributor to the shows that we've done on cartography and maps, as well as our most recent show earlier this year, Keeping the Faith on Jewish Traditions. She's a talented artist in the textile and mixed media space. Ellen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to exchange with you because I know that you touch a lot of bases. As one person, you have kind of an unusual range in the creative space. And maybe as a result, some observations that you could kind of share with us that might help all of us that are struggling with, understanding at the moment about where we're going with this COVID thing to cope. So I just wanted to have you talk a little bit, if you don't mind, just to introduce yourself to our audience about your work, which is powerful and creative. I see actually some of it behind you there. Maybe you can describe to our audience a little bit about what got you started in the space and what you've been doing and where you hope to be going with your work.
Sure. Well, I was formerly trained as an illustrator, and I had a career in graphic design, and I pursued photography, but I've always sewn since I'm 10 years old, and I made quilts and my own clothes, and I just love being at the sewing machine. It's my happy place. And so my most recent venture into fiber art or mixed media textiles started when I lived most of my adult life in Palos Verdes, which is a very scenic area of Los Angeles. And I was taking a lot of photographs and looking at maps of the area, and I wanted to combine the photography with the map, with my fabric, with the beauty of the area.
Wow, fabulous.
So I, of course, went to a AAA map at first, and if I showed you my first work, it just looks so primitive, but that was the start of the genesis of the work.
That's true of all of us. We all have to start somewhere. Usually it's not the best place.
So a local gallery was kind enough to let me show, and since then, it was Peggy's ask. I've had her curate a show here at the SLO Museum of Art, and I found my mentor, who was Valerie Goodwin, who was an architecture professor and quilter, and she had this cartography thing going on. And I studied with her, and that just launched me into constant work, one after another. I got a hold of the Rand McNally Book of Maps, which maybe younger people don't know what that is, but living in LA, everybody had this thick book of maps in their car.
Just to get around from street to street, right? From district to district. Before the computer, before GPS, right?
Yeah. So each page is a aspect ratio of 8:10, and is a quadrant of LA County. And so I started up at the top of the county at Malibu and worked my way down each quadrant past Long Beach. And, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, your fans beckon. Word got out that you're having this interview, I'm pretty sure.
I'll call her later. So I would go to the area, I'd take photos of the area, then I'd look at the map, and using framing and ranking and layering, I'm reading Valerie's guides, transparency, merging, scale. I try to bring out the essence of that area.
Wow.
And one of my very favorites was LAX, because the aerial view of LAX is just an incredible graphic in itself. And then, of course, the theme building, the famous Jetson-like theme building.
Exactly.
And I went all the way down Queen Mary, and then I got to a place called Terminal Island. And Terminal Island really is just a federal prison right now, but I started researching it, and there was so much more to it. First of all, it's landfill, and it was, before World War II, a very large Japanese fishing and canning village of 3,000 residents who sadly were sent to the camps, and the village is no more.
Wow.
And it also was the launching pad for the Spruce Goose.
Howard Hughes's monstrous airplane back in the day.
Went up in the air for 7 seconds or something.
Right. It was so big it couldn't fly.
Right. So point being is there's more than meets the eye. Like Terminal Island is at first glance just not inspirational, but it had a deep history. So using the cartography, it's a way to bring out history and also educate people.
Absolutely.
You know, so people didn't know about this. There's a shrine there that is a shrine honoring the fishermen.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
fascinating journey. I mean, and I'm struck as you're talking about, you know, the sense that many of us have right now of unrootedness because of the COVID-19 passage that we're all living through. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating and interesting to think that, you know, early on you developed an affinity for depictions of space and relationship, you know, spatial relationships. I
Mm-hmm.
think people are very hungry right now for connection, and we're finding it through this digital, you know, connectivity that we're demonstrating right here, right now.
Absolutely.
So I wonder on that point, if as an artist going forward, and even as a curator, you're thinking a lot more about the applications of digitalization and the utility of you know, using this modality as a way of, you know, advancing creative expression, even after this crisis is over. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, exactly right when things were starting to look like we weren't going to be going anywhere for a while, I had been accepted into a juried art show in New Canaan, Connecticut at the Silver Mine Art Center, which I was
Mm-hmm.
very happy about, and I was about
Lovely.
to send it off. And then they contacted me and said, well, we're going to have a virtual show as well, but if you still want to send it, you can, and we have your write-up and so forth. And so they put together a beautiful virtual show. And so I had no plans to go to Connecticut, but now anybody can see it anywhere. And then the Cambria Art Center was going to show a body of work from a group that I'm involved in locally, a fiber
Mm-hmm.
arts group, and that place shut down.
Yeah.
But I happen to have high-res photos of all the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have displayed it, created a web page for it, and then I also had a PDF with more detail about the work. So
So you were
I think
ready.
it's going to become the new normal
Yeah.
because we
It's
can't. I mean,
fascinating.
I can't go to the Louvre, but wouldn't it be great? Or any gallery. It doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
Louvre. It could be any gallery, anywheres.
Yeah, this is sort of a democratizing impulse that, you know, unwittingly we backed into, because the rap on the arts community, and possibly well earned, is that it's a very elitist proposition and only a few people get to go and actually appreciate and benefit from work that you see in installations. But with virtualization, that changes the whole landscape, and what you're speaking to is the possibility of expanding our audiences beyond what we could have imagined even a few years ago.
I think it's going to become the new normal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to enter shows, you have to send a high-res digital photo of your work anyway,
Correct. Yeah.
and a write-up,
Yeah.
and a statement.
Right.
So to be able to see that from art shows I'm not going to be able to travel to, and also to share it with friends and family. And
Exactly, to extend its shelf life, if you will, or its accessibility to people that otherwise would just never benefit from it. That's
right,
fascinating.
right. And then as far as a curator goes, which I somewhat fell into through your studios, I wanted to have my work shown there. And when I mentioned to
Mhm.
Sasha, who used to be the manager there,
Mhm.
that I was into cartography, that spoke to her. And
Yeah,
then the next thing you know, I'm curating a show.
yeah, and
With
it
a
was a
lot
spectacular show. For those that
of
missed it,
thanks.
I regret that you
It
did,
was
but
great.
maybe
It
you'll
was
do one
great.
again for us in the future, you know?
Oh, thank
It
you.
was an
Well,
awesome show.
I just went on Google and just started putting in all my keywords and reaching out to the artists. And with Sasha's help, you know, a lot came in even from a couple foreign countries,
Yeah,
which
isn't that incredible?
elevated.
You made it an international show. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
it
was
was fun,
spectacular.
and
Yeah,
I got a lot of satisfaction out of it. And then you were kind enough to. Well, we also had help with videos, but you took a lot of photos and put them on the Facebook page for people to
absolutely.
see. And I mean, I don't know with this current situation where we'd be without the internet. I mean, it would be
Right? It'd be kind of lights out, literally. We would be disconnected and completely unclear about our possibilities. So I'm
right,
really grateful that you're putting your finger on that important recognition that even if for some of us this is a new technology or a new form of communication, we're very fortunate actually to have the technology that we have to carry on.
right.
Yeah. What about this? I mean, as an artist or even as a curator, take your pick, but how is this moment affecting your work and your point of view about what you want to be doing now as you look to the future? Has it changed in any fundamental way your sense of priorities as an artist or as a
Yeah,
curator?
it has. When things first started falling apart, my daughter, who's a local pediatrician, asked me if I'd sew masks, which of course I'd do anything she asked me to.
Wow. Wow.
And so I whipped out 40 and then another 10 and another 10 and another 10. And she wanted the children's mouths and noses to be covered.
That's
And
beautiful.
so that was very purposeful. And then, I mean, there's tens of thousands of sewers all over the world
It's a
making masks.
phenomenon now, women and men, but mostly women sewing masks and tailoring them to their particular family or community
And
needs.
companies too,
Companies as
corporations and
well. Exactly.
manufacturers are,
Exactly.
so
Which
it's
is
kind of a somewhat of a Rosie the Riveter
yeah.
thing. But after I made all these masks, and then it was interesting because people go, well, this is how you make a mask. No, it's this pattern. No, you got to make it this way. No, you got to make it that way. And I was like, done.
Yeah, you got out of it just in time, right?
Okay. So I had to settle down. And then I started and I've made a few. I've made some for my neighbors. I shipped
That's
them
wonderful.
some to my son, who's in
So that's
LA.
really putting art, in service to the moment that we're in and the
Right.
healing that we need in a very, very direct and very concrete way.
Right. So after I kind of burned out on that, I started thinking, well, why am I even making art? Because
Hmm.
I felt so purposeful. And then I was like, what purpose am I? And then it took me a while, but I realized that the art brings joy to people, which we need to get outside of ourselves, to look
Here,
at something,
here.
to interpret something in a different way, whether
Hmm.
it's through a map or whether it's a political statement, or even if it's a flower,
Hmm.
like I've done
Hmm.
some art that's hanging in hospitals, which is needed. You need joy in places to get your mind
Absolutely. Maybe more than
going.
ever. Maybe more than ever, I
Yes,
really appreciate your point that, art as joy and art as purpose, something beyond just the kind of transactional aspects of it,
yeah.
so I'm so
And,
grateful we all are that you're putting your art to work like that.
oh, thank you. Another word that comes to mind that my niece said to me, because of course, I give my art to my family. She goes, "This is your legacy," and I hadn't
Isn't that
thought of
interesting?
that word
Yeah.
before,
Powerful.
and it's
Very
powerful.
powerful. Yeah.
And now I'm like, I want more people to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fortunate that I don't have to do my art to support myself, but like I want it out there in the world. And then the appreciation that you get from the recipient is unrivaled.
Yes. Because there is
It's
a
so,
relationship,
yeah,
right?
it's
The
personal.
producer and the viewer or the purchaser has a very intimate relationship that may be unspoken and never even consummated in reality, but it is a real relationship. And that's what art does. That's why people have so much passion about it, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a relationship or a bond that is so unique.
Entirely unique to that one set of people, right?
Mhm.
What about this? I'm talking to a lot of creatives, not just in the context of these really informative interviews, but just on the phone and, just through the internet, email, and what have you. And I'm finding that a lot of people, and including myself, are at times overwhelmed, depressed, unclear about how to find motivation to actually create, not
Yeah.
clear about what we should be producing. And I wonder if you have any advice or counsel for folks like me and others I just described that are kind of struggling with a way to, figure out where does my art fit in
Mm.
this reality? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off the bat, I would advise people to watch a very limited amount of news very early
That's really
on.
good advice.
When I was like trying to piece all this together, and true confession, my husband and I watch 3 hours of MSNBC a night normally, which is nuts,
Yeah.
but we enjoy it. So I I barely can watch any now. I just see a couple of headlines,
Yeah.
and it's too much. It's
Hmm.
just too much.
So
So
stay out of the negative and try and be more focused on positive alternatives to begin with,
correct,
right?
correct. I
What
mean,
else? What else you got?
I really was going off the rails, and I just
Mm-hmm.
had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so every morning I'm finding I wake up, not sure what kind of mood I'm going to be in. If it's dark out and raining, that'll be the mood. Today it's sunny,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy. I can go outside, but just to be gentle with myself. This is my mood today. I can be, it's kind of a huge timeout. Like you can
Yeah,
be
isn't it?
gentle with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
where's my muse today? Oh, I was working on that yesterday. I don't feel like it. I'm going to do this today. And right now I probably have 12 projects going on, but I'll just be tinkering or with one,
Fascinating.
like a little bird flitting from one tree. Okay.
Exactly. But it sounds like that's the point, that, you know, you're being kind to yourself about not putting undue pressure to produce or to have a time schedule that's not realistic in light of everything else that's going on emotionally and
Yeah,
spiritually and in the world, right?
exactly. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think that's
there's no
wise.
pressure. I know a lot of people are still working and they have deadlines, and that's important. But I think this is like a huge lesson in being kind to yourself
Hmm.
and
And kind to others, you know?
exactly.
Yeah, no, we certainly need to do that. Well, I want to ask if you have any final thoughts in the remaining minute or so that we have before I let you go and we sign off. But with hopes that, you know, if you're able and willing and circumstances still warrant, we'll come back to this in a few weeks and maybe continue the conversation. Any
Well,
final thoughts for this segment that you'd like to share with our
well,
viewers?
you know, there are so many online classes.
So
Okay,
true.
some are free, some
So
aren't.
true. Yeah.
But with this time, if you have the time on your hands,
Hmm.
a friend of mine had a birthday, and I sent her some paints and canvas and palette and brushes because she wanted to dabble.
That's so kind.
And I mean, not oh, there's a class on how to make your Instagram page pay off better for you
Hmm.
on Domestika.
Hmm.
And I mean, this is a good time block for learning.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I mean, it's a fertile moment for learning and also for taking care of some of these kind of details that we tend to not have time for during the normal flow of things that might involve, you know, increasing your technology skills to display your art or working on your website or your communications messaging or your content. I mean, there's a lot of things that people can and should be doing with the time that we suddenly have, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I, when I work, I usually listen to an audiobook or a podcast because I can do both, you know,
Beautiful.
and
Beautiful.
so I'm getting, but only positives. I used to listen to like 4 different news podcasts and those
Right.
no more.
So that's the key. You got to program yourself for positivity, and you got to take advantage of the technology and the digitalization in programming that is emerging out there, which is, like you say, maybe game changing. Maybe this will become the new normal for us in
I
some
hope so. And it's
interesting
happening
way.
quickly.
It's
Look at
happening
all the TV
remarkably
shows. Look at the
quickly.
late night TV shows are
Yes.
all
They're doing what we're doing right here, you know,
right.
essentially.
It's wonderful.
Well, I'm thrilled that you could be a part of this important conversation, and we're so grateful to you, Ellen, for all that you do for Studios on the Park, for our larger artistic and creative community, and for society at large. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be back in touch with you soon. Ellen November, a great artist in our community. We'll be back for more conversations in our series. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. More news to come.